Yes, here we are once again, everyone. Cannabis News. I'm your host, Joe Klare. It's June 21st, 2019. Show, as always, is presented by the Marijuana Times. For those of you who didn't watch yesterday's show, I talked about why we missed the June 19th show. There is no June 19th show. If you are looking for it, I had some internet trouble. There's a big storm in the area. Apparently, it blew out, kind of a power surge, blew out the power outlet in the basement of this building, and that gives power to the internet signal that comes in. So that was a problem that had to be overcome. And today I'm doing the show later than I wanted to because today, no storm, sun shining, 80 degrees, and the electricity goes out in like an 8 or 9 block radius around where we are. I'm not big on conspiracy theories, but I'm starting to think that there's kind of a problem with the electrical grid in this area. Hopefully that doesn't mean there's going to be problems in the future for this show. I'm hoping not. We're going to make up the June 19th show tomorrow, which is a Saturday. I normally don't do shows on Saturday, but I will this week to keep the shows, even. We do 5 a week. It's just every week there's 5 more, and the episode count goes up by 5. Keeping it all straight. So this June 19th show will be made up tomorrow, which will be the June 22nd show. Now, all of that is out of the way. Today, we're talking about the legal age for marijuana and why some people think it should be older than 21. Also, a viral story that is so viral at this point that if I didn't talk about it, it would seem like I was avoiding it. I've seen this story in so many different places, so I'm going to talk about it too, because that's what we need. If the story's really viral and everybody's talking about it, we need more people talking about it. Also, new rules for recreational marijuana approved by the Maine legislature. You may remember the voters in Maine legalized adult use marijuana in 2016. That's a thing that happened. And so far, well, there's no apparatus for that legalization to operate under. That's what they're working on. Talk about all that coming up. But first, of course, Cannabis News is brought to you by NatureSide, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. Grow safe and poison-free. Don't use harmful chemicals or banned pesticides on what you're growing. Do all these things with NatureSide, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. They're awesome. Thank you to NatureSide. This first story by yours truly at marijuanatimes.org. Should the legal age for marijuana use be 25? That's right, 25 years of age. Basically, this is a rebuttal of a New York Times opinion piece by Dr. Kenneth L. Davis and Dr. Mary Jean Creek. They made their views clear in an op-ed in the New York Times that the legal age for marijuana should, going forward, and maybe even retroactively to other states, be raised to 25. They cherry-picked quite a few studies and linked to those, including the, rather hilariously, the discredited, and now very much discredited, 2012 Duke study that showed a drop in IQ for those who use cannabis at an earlier age. So I make reference to that. Also, they don't really explain, if they raise it to 25, that how they're going to enforce it on those who are like 21 to 24, full-grown adults who know other full-grown adults. I mean, it's not like, a 16-year-old being deterred because a retail store is asking for ID. A 23-year-old person, they're going to have a problem finding some black market marijuana. So all that's going to do, all they're really saying is by raising the 25 is that it's better if those aged 21 and 24 just kind of go get it from a dealer or something and not bother the legal program, the legal way of things that are done. But as I mentioned in the article, the real problem I have with this, if you think about it for a second, you break it down, the narcissism of these two doctors. It's one thing to say, hey, marijuana shouldn't be legal. That's fine. I don't care if you think marijuana shouldn't be legal. That's great. We could even be friends. I don't care. It's not that big of a deal to me. But then you start going up levels. You get to the next level. It's people who think marijuana shouldn't be legal, and they will do what they can to use the force of government to make sure that marijuana is illegal. I have a problem with those people. It's one thing to have that opinion. It's another thing entirely to believe that your opinion should have the force of law behind it through the state. And then there's Dr. What did I say their names were? Dr. Kenneth L. Davis and Dr. Mary Jean Creek. Then there's another level of extreme narcissism, which says, not only do I know whether or not cannabis should be legal, but I think that all future legislation going forward should take my advice and change the age from 21 to 25. I'm so smart. I'm such an expert. I linked to 5 or 6 studies in a New York Times op-ed, one of them which is complete garbage, the 2012 Duke study. I'm such an expert that all legislation going forward should take my advice that I wrote in a New York Times op-ed. That's crazy. The ego it takes for that is amazing to me. You're a doctor. So what? Yeah, I know. Doctors are great. They go to school for a long time. But a lot of people are doctors. Let's be clear. Let's be fair about this. A lot of people are doctors. It doesn't make you an expert on everything. It certainly doesn't make you an expert on cannabis because most medical schools don't even mention cannabis to this day. And if you went to medical school 10 or 20 years ago, none of them mentioned cannabis. You don't know anything about it. And even if you did, let's say that Dr. Kenneth L. Davis and Dr. Mary Jean Creek somehow, through some sort of Black Mirror technology, have imprinted every single fact, theory, opinion, nugget of information about marijuana. They put it all into their brain. They can instantly recall all of it. They know everything there is to know about marijuana. That still doesn't give them the right to say, oh, well, you're 22, you want to smoke some weed? Too bad. Too bad. I'm an expert. I say no. I don't care how smart you are, how smart you think you are. You're not smart enough to tell me what to do. If I'm not bothering anyone else, nothing you can say, no ability that you have, no intelligence level that you can reach would allow me to hand over my decision-making, the sovereignty over my individuality to you. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a doctor. I don't care if you have 16 doctorates. I don't care if you're immortal and you've got a doctor from every college in the world. You've spent 486 years in college. You're an immortal vampire, but instead of killing people and sucking their blood, you decide to go to a bunch of different colleges and learn stuff. You have every letter in your name possible, PhD, all of that crap. It doesn't matter. I don't care. You still don't have the right to have the ego to think, oh, well, everybody thinks it should be 21. No, I say 25. I'm a doctor. I wrote a New York Times op-ed piece. It should be 25. No, I don't care what you say. Go away. Which, by the way, beyond all that, your reasoning, your cherry-picked studies, it's all garbage. Absolute garbage. You may be a decent doctor. I have no idea. But your ability to make a case in an op-ed of a newspaper sucks. That is what I will say on the matter. This next story from JS Online. But as I said, you can find this story everywhere. It's so super duper viral. Yes, her name really is Marijuana Pepsi, and now she's Dr. Marijuana Pepsi to you. Another doctor story. How about that? The incoming college freshman vowed that she would go on to a master's degree and then a doctorate. I'm going to be called Dr. Marijuana Pepsi, she declared. Well, she did dish that despite and maybe because of the druggy, sugary name. That's kind of funny. She was given at birth 46 years ago and has embraced it proudly ever since. Yes, I'm sure you've seen the stories about Marijuana Pepsi. Now, Dr. Marijuana Pepsi. Jim Stingle, the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, says, I first wrote about this remarkable woman 10 years ago after she earned a master's degree in higher education administration and was teaching in Beloit, where she grew up. The article went viral and marijuana still has strangers saying to her, I've heard of you. Last month, after 8 years of studying and commuting, she scored a PhD in higher education leadership from Cardinal Stritch University in the Milwaukee area. So it seemed like a good time to catch up with Dr. Marijuana, which she admits sounds a bit like a weed dispensary. Wouldn't her name be Dr. Pepsi, though? But Dr. Marijuana sounds better. I agree. And it would be, if she were so inclined to open up a marijuana dispensary, Dr. Marijuana would almost have to be the name. It would be criminal, if you will, if she did not use the name Dr. Marijuana if she opened a dispensary. Her name was originally Jackson and later Sawyer and is now Vandyck. She married Fred Vandyck in 2017 and they live on a 3-acre hobby farm with pigs and chickens and such in Pecatonaca, Illinois. Marijuana has a son, 16-year-old Isaac, who is smart and tall like his mom and likes basketball. Frederick has 3 children. And also one of those children has a baby, which makes Marijuana a grandmother Grandma Marijuana Pepsi. So this is a viral story for obvious reasons. The woman's name is Marijuana Pepsi, which is not the greatest name. And I love marijuana. I mean, you won't find it. Look behind me. You won't find a bigger fan of marijuana. But to name your child marijuana, I think it opens them up for some problems. But this person, at least in this instance, used that to kind of galvanize her life, which is very impressive. As much as people blamed and judged her mother for the name, marijuana credits her mom with making her the strong, balanced entrepreneurial woman she is today. It doesn't say teachers, classmates, bosses, and other people in marijuana's life pushed back against her name and teased her. Marijuana is the name printed on her driver's license. It doesn't say, I don't think, like the story itself of how she came about the name, why her mother would choose Marijuana Pepsi. Was it just a matter of her liking marijuana and liking Pepsi? I mean, I like Slim Jims, but I'm not going to call my kid Slim Jim. You know, there's just, it doesn't, you have to take it to that level. Anyway, marijuana has never met anyone else with that name, but she would like to. I don't know. Is there anybody else out there named Marijuana? I have no idea. As reported in the first article, the guy goes on, marijuana has never smoked or vaped or ingested her namesake drug, not once. Here's what she said when I asked her for her view on legalization. She said, quote, "My main concern are the individuals serving time for marijuana-related offenses. I would like to see all of their sentences overturned. These people were locked up for making money from the sale of marijuana, and now that the government has figured out ways to make the money themselves, it is legal and further encouraged." She doesn't drink either. When anyone urges her to try alcohol as a way to relax, she says, "I feel great. I party with drunk people. You can't tell us apart." I find it hard to believe. If you've ever been a sober person in a sea of drunk people, it's aggravating. It is aggravating, to say the least. But yeah, I don't think it says in this story. Maybe it says in another story. I don't know what the story is, why she chose the name. Her mother gave her the provocative name Marijuana Pepsi and said it would take her around the world. Is that why she did it? I don't know. I can't say why. I'm thinking if I had to bet, I would say it's because she liked marijuana and Pepsi. But again, I don't know how you translate that into someone's name. But I'm glad for Dr. Marijuana Pepsi, Dr. Marijuana, Dr. Pepsi, whatever you want to call her. She probably couldn't call herself Dr. Pepsi. Now that I think of it, I think there might be she might run into some trademark problems. She named a dispensary Dr. Pepsi. But Dr. Marijuana, 1-888 Dr. Marijuana. Call up. This last story is from WGME.com. Maine legislature approves recreational marijuana rules, as I mentioned earlier. Maine voters legalized recreational marijuana way back in 2016. Now the Maine legislature has approved amended rules for adult use marijuana sales and oversight just hours before it broke for summer recess Thursday morning. The rules, which are required by law, now go to the governor's desk. Among other things, the amended rules ease the requirements on certain foods containing marijuana and on the state residency requirements for operating a recreational marijuana businesses. They should have took the A out, or not made that plural. Anyway, not here to critique the typos in the article. Continuing, the Maine Senate approved the rules by a vote of 26-9. The Maine House approved them without a roll call. The governor's stamp, they would go into effect 90 days after the legislature adjourned. That's almost 3 years after Maine voters approved recreational marijuana retail sales. So, good for voters in Maine, for those who support marijuana legalization. I hear it's on the way. I don't know what else I can say about the inordinate amount of time it takes lawmakers to get some of this stuff done. I know Maine was a special case because Paul LePage hated legalization. He fought tooth and nail against it, which was unfortunate. And now there's a different governor and things seem to be moving forward, and that's great. But the slowness of this stuff it's quite something to see. I mean, really, it's impressive in some cases how ungodly long these simple things take. Just making some rules for marijuana sales. Almost 3 years. Almost 3 years. Again, I know, Governor LePage. I get it. It's fine. But still. You can't, just because there's a reason for something or an explanation for something doesn't mean it's not nuts that it happened. It doesn't mean it wasn't a waste of time. It was clearly a waste of time, especially for cannabis consumers in Maine. Anyway, that's going to do it for this show. Thanks, everybody. It's not the last show of the week. It is the Friday show, but we're going to do a Saturday show, as I said, to make up for the missing June 19th show. That didn't happen because of my internet problems. Hopefully the electrical problems I talked about earlier don't continue in this area, and I'll be able to bring you another show this week. Check us out. Search Marijuana Times on YouTube and Vimeo. Apple Podcasts for the audio-only version of the show, marijuanatimes.org. You find us there as well as a bunch of great articles, writers, social media links, all that stuff. Thank you to Nature Side, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. Thank you all for watching and listening today, and we'll see you next time right here on Cannabis News.